Alright guys, welcome to another video. In this video, I want to show you how to do prints and cuts from your large format machine. If you have a large format machine, if you have a plotter, those two can be combined to do print and cut. The regular method to do print and cut prior to now was to have a Roland machine that does print and cut and some really expensive machine, but with your large format machine and a plotter, you should be able to get those two things done. However, you're going to need a Signmaster software, you're going to need CorelDRAW, and then you're going to need attentive ears to watch this video. Let's get into it. So you start by exporting the file, importing the file that you want into CorelDRAW, and then changing the size to the size you need. In this case, it's 1.5 by 1.5 inches. Now you go to File, export the file as PNG. So remember to change this from TIFF to PNG and then give it a very interesting name like K. We can just say maybe KSA or whatever you want. And then you can say selected only or no, it doesn't, but to click export. So once you have the dialog box, remember to keep this list as RGBs just for coloring. And then here is where we are really interested in. So here, instead of leaving at 300 dpi, because it's a small file, you need to export it as about 6000 dpi. That way you bump up the size to a considerable size that captures all the details of the file, so that by the time you print, the file comes rich in depth, and so you can easily transfer that file to your Maintop for print. That might take a little while this is exporting. So by the time it's done exporting, you can then load that into Maintop. So we're just going to wait a bit while it loads up. Okay, now it has loaded up, and then you click OK. So that's the first stage of the job. The second stage is now to open the same file which you have created in Signmaster. Remember I told you we're going to need two different jobs for this, two different softwares for this. The first one is Signmaster, the other one is CorelDRAW. So the Signmaster is where we do a bit of explanation. So first, let us import that file. You can right click on any space here and then click import. When you are done with the import, you can then pick the file. This is the file KSA, and then the file drops into your Signmaster like this. Now that 6000 dpi is why the file is so big. So what you now have to do is to shrink the file down to the size you want. Same as in CorelDRAW, 1.5 by 1.5. So it does that for you automatically. So you have 1.5 by 1.5. Now we then click this apple, this one down here, and then create contour cut. When you press yes, it's going to bring us a new dialog box where it will now do a digital tracing of your file to map out all the coordinates that it's going to use to cut around this object. So you can now click trace. That's going to happen for a bit by scanning through all of your files one after the other. And by the time it's done with that scanning, it will then have a digital representation of all the markers for creating a circle 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch. When that is done, you click apply and then accept. Once you accept, you see this tiny bluish ring around it that maps the coordinate for that one file. So that coordinate we have for that one file is what we then transfer to all the other files by duplication. So that's the second phase. So you come to this place and then you create contour cut wizard. So it's going to open that wizard up for you now. Now you can see that there's a map around one object, but that's not what we need. We need to define how many pieces of this that we need. Mostly for small jobs like this, your customer is going to be looking for 100 pieces. So you go to tiled copies down here and then look for combination of how many goes left and how many goes up and down. That gives you 100. We can start from 10 inches horizontally and then 10 inches vertically. That will give us 100. There are two problems we need to discuss very quickly. One is the spacing between each object, which is controlled by this. If we leave it now, this one here says you have 0.3 inches. That's about half an inch between each object. That's too much material to waste. So you then have to reduce the size. Usually a size of 0.03 vertically and a size of 0.03 horizontally is perfect for this job. So now you have 16.391 and 15.669. All right, so now we have done the issue of the spacing, but we have a problem with the material space. Now, SAVs come in different sizes. Mine is currently 48 inches. Depending on the one you have, you're going to have to set this based on that. So because mine is 48 inches, I'm looking for a size that will fit my material. So I know that 30 will give me the required width that I need. So that's 46.46, right? Now, if your material is 30 inches, then you need to do a combination of this that works right for you. But remember, we said that the customer needs 100 pieces. At 10 horizontal and 30 vertical, we have 300 copies. So we need something a lot lesser than this. How we fix that is to just drop this to about 5. Now, if we drop this to about 5, we get 8.694. This number is crucial because you need at least 2 tires on your plotter to be able to accommodate this particular size. And then we cannot have less than 8.694 because this is about the distance of 2 tires. And you need at least a minimum of 2 tires to be able to put. So in that case, this is the minimum we can have. If that is the minimum we can have, and this will be the minimum we can have for 48 inches sticker, it means the customer can only get 150 copies minimum of this. There are 2 ways you can do this. Either you tell the customer, well, if you pay such and such an amount, I'll give you 150 pieces. Or you don't have to tell him at all, just charge him based on 150 pieces and then give it to him. So whichever one pays you, depends on your rapport to the customer, go for that. So in this case, 150 pieces is the minimum. So I'm just going to save this image. And I could call it KSA laid or something, just to remember it. It's going to export at JPEG for a bit. So just click on save. Now, while it's saving, I need you to understand what we just did. We needed a sticker of 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch. Now, at 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch, we can only get 150 pieces minimum. So that 150 pieces minimum now becomes the effective material that you can lay on top of your machine in Maintop and still retain enough space for your plotter to cut. The reason I'm using 46.46 is because my material is 50 inches. So even at 46.46, I still have about 3 inches free that my machine will stay to be able to cut the files that are laid at the bottom here. So that's very important. So now that it's done exporting, there's a second side of that job, and which is to get the cut file that your plotter is going to use. Remember, it's both a large format part and a cutter part. So this part that says cut now is the cutter part. Now, if I click cut here, I will then create a PLT file that contains all the coordinates of every single circle in this place that the plotter is going to scan using these dots. You'll see these dots better when we get to Corel Draw. So I'm going to click cut right now. And then it's going to open this dialog box where I will then click next. And then it will open a place in my flash drive where I can just save that cut. So now I'm going to say KSA laid, only that this time around it's going to create a PLT file for me. So then I'll click save. It's a very small file, so it's not going to be memory intensive. Now, once we have that, we'll now open Corel Draw again, which will be the second time we open Corel Draw in this process. Delete what was there prior and then go to File, Import. Now we're looking for KSA laid in the folder where we save them, and that will be this one, KSA laid JPEG, not KSA laid PLT. The KSA laid PLT is for the plotter, while the KSA laid JPEG is for the large format machine. So when you click on this, you click Import, and then it's going to bring the file in. Now, there's a crucial thing you need to understand, and that's something to do with sizing. Now, mostly when you bring a file from Plotter to Corel Draw, it's going to be the same size. right? But you see, this size, you have to be careful because that size, you can't just dump it directly into Maintop. It's going to worry you. So, but keep that in mind while we'll continue. So now this circles right here, this one and this one and this one and this one, and all the other 10 of them that is laid around this job is what your plotter scans to be able to get the coordinates that is inside here based on what you dropped in your flash. So the size of this matters. So if you look at these sizes now that I have here and this one, they match precisely what is here in Signmaster. So now I can just easily say file, export. Now I will export this as TIF. The reason we are exporting as TIF is so that we can have the best sharpness for the print. JPEG on large format is usually dull, so we need TIF. So again, we'll do KSA laid. Only this time around, it's going to be the TIF, and we click export. Now that file that we export is what we then take into Signmaster, into Maintop, and then export. In your TIF, always remember to set something high, a lot higher than 300 dpi, so that you can be able to have, the best amount of color as possible. In this case, when I was exporting as TIF, I used 600 dpi. And so 600 dpi will get you the best quality possible for your job. So the next part of this will now be for us to load this particular file now into Maintop and do the final processing for our print. Now I'm only going to load this up in Maintop because I'm not going to print this. This was a customer's job they collected yesterday. Let me quickly show you that thing I was saying about TIF. So when you're doing TIF, right, KSA laid TIF, click export, it's going to ask you that thing. We're not using it. I just want to show you. We left this place at 600. That's what I was showing you, so that you can take as much color depth as possible. Otherwise, it won't work for us. So click cancel. Now, the last part is for us to go to Maintop and then go to File, Import Picture. Now, we're going to bring KSA laid TIF, not KSA laid JPEG. Don't forget, JPEG is not as sharp as TIF. So once I pick this and I open and I'll click OK, it's going to load that file. Now, this was what I was telling you about sizing. Because if you look at here now, it's bringing 50 inches by 267. Whereas in CorelDRAW, the size was actually 8.695 by 46.46. The size in CorelDRAW is what you use. Don't use this size in Maintop. So what you do is come back here and then copy this size, right? Copy this size, 8.695, and come to this place and type 8.695, and then come to the bottom, 46.46, and go to Signmaster and do 46, and do 46.46, and then you press enter. Now you centralize all the objects, bring it into the center, and then do 90 degrees, and then adjust the job properly, and this is what you have. So this is the space my plotter would stay on to cut this part. If you don't put this space, it'll cut all the way from here to here and then fall off because you didn't create enough space. So that's pretty much how to do it. Next to that is just click print, properties, auto set paper, click OK, print. And once you have printed, it goes into large format, prints, and then you carry the printed job, load it on Maintop, load the PLT file, and then you will then be able to get your jobs plotted. So that's pretty much how you do it, guys. In the next video, I'm going to show you a real life job, and I'm going to show you the procedure, how we do it, so eventually we produce a customer's job. For now, we can't do it with this one because it's just demo, just teach you what you need to do. All right, I hope this has helped you. If it has, I want you to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Take care.